Hey, this is Jeff Fortson of Auto Trends with JeffCars.com. We're continuing our conversation over from radio with Kevin Tynan. He is a senior automotive analyst with Bloomberg Intelligence. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, buddy, how are you?
Hey, doing great. So we're going to continue our conversation from radio for the next 10 minutes or so as we talk about a few round robin of questions with Kevin. So, Kevin, something I didn't get a chance to ask you about on radio. Let's talk about word on the street is that before the Inflation Reduction Act was introduced by the Biden administration back in August of last year, which obviously it was designed to bring manufacturing jobs back to North America, back to the United States, also to help relieve us of the supply chain issues that help to drive up prices as it relates to the EV lane. Word on the street is that Kia, Hyundai, and Genesis, which is all a part of the same family, and we look at Tesla, is that they were about to rival Tesla in the EV lane. What did you hear? What did you hear from your folks?
Yeah, so the issue with those companies relative to the Inflation Reduction Act is that Hyundai, Kia, Genesis argument is that if this is about climate and reducing carbon and EV adoption for the average consumer, then everything should be eligible, regardless of, whether we build it in South Korea or whether it's built in the United States. If you really want to reduce carbon, you need to get EVs in the hands of people. So the political argument is that, well, it's really not about climate. It's about protectionism of, building supply chains in the United States so we're not dependent on mining and refining in other countries that we're maybe not that friendly with. So it becomes a political thing in terms of what's really the goal of this act. Is it about climate and getting EVs to customers, or is it really about protecting manufacturing and jobs in this country? And I think there's some misunderstanding about what it's really for. And, the consumer ultimately could lose out because some of those affordable EVs from countries that are not the United States would be good to buy, but they're unavailable, or at least the tax credit is unavailable for those vehicles.
And so that's also another reason why that $7,500 for leasing was actually put into place as of January of this year. All right, so let's also talk about, let's go to Detroit for a second, which is one of the
favorite city.
I know it is. It's a ground zero for the auto industry, in addition to California too. When we look at North America, we talked about on the radio program, and also which obviously transitions to our YouTube program too. We talked about General Motors with their layoff of 5,000 individuals. Actually, it wasn't a layoff of 5,000. 5,000 individuals accepted early retirement opportunities so they wouldn't have to lay off. Probably more than that actually accepted. So this didn't put them in a layoff position. From what I heard is that GM did this ahead of their negotiations with the UAW, which is the United Auto Workers, which has a lot of power within the automotive industry. The UAW over the years have gone through a number of leadership changes for a number of different reasons. They've had a number of issues in terms of leadership that actually has created good scandals for TV. But as opposed to going down that road, as opposed to keeping traditional UAW peoples at the helm of leadership, is that just as of recently, the hands has changed. And now you've got folks who may be a little bit more contentious in this position and may expect a different relationship with the automakers. They're not going to necessarily be looking out for the best interest of the automakers, but basically for the best interest of UAW workers. How do you think this is going to play out? Will this affect General Motors in terms of layoffs, profitability with plant closure, with them being forced to give more to the UAW in order to avoid maybe a possible shutdown? Let me hear your thoughts about this.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the language coming out of the UAW seems to be very aggressive heading into the negotiations, and not that it isn't, it never has been before, but it seems like, whispering around the water cooler around here, you would be preparing that there would be some strike action, whether it's Stellantis or whoever they start the negotiations with, and I think you've seen that, and I think the GM early retirements were mostly white collar, if not all. And but I also think that's where that tells me two things. One is this idea that we're not going to go back to this 17 million unit, very high volume, low priced environment. Automakers, or in this case, General Motors, sort of right sizing for a smaller market. Right, you're not going to let people go so you can build more stuff. It's kind of the opposite. So I think that consumers and dealers need to settle into this idea of less inventory. The other thing is, I think some of that inventory build we've seen in the last couple months is leading up to the possibility or probability that there is some UAW strike action this summer into the fall, that we've stocked up some supply that we could ride through weeks or months of a labor action by the UAW. So my feeling is, if I had to answer yes or no, will there be some sort of strike action this year, I would say yes.
So this could affect all of the Detroit three, or one of the Detroit three. So meaning Ford, Stellantis, which Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Fiat, all of them fall under that at this point, and then also General Motors. Is your thoughts correct? Or
well,
one of the three?
Typically they'll negotiate with one automaker first. I believe it's Stellantis in this case. So yeah.
Okay, so they're first up.
Fiat, Chrysler brands, and so that would be the highest probability of strike action. Once that is settled and they're negotiating with the others, the contracts kind of just fall in line with each other.
Correct.
So it's really the first one that has the most risk.
So we were kind of thinking that GM was kind of giving some concessions, like, hey, see, we are looking at our balance sheets and we let 5,000 folks take early retirement. And so we're being a good neighbor on our part. So be a good neighbor on your part when you come to the table and negotiate with us. It's kind of the school of thoughts, the word on the street. All right, let's talk about also Facebook, TikTok, applications inside of today's vehicles when we look at infotainment centers.
Of which I use none of. I don't know any. Again, but yeah, as it relates to auto,
my intern does. Your kids do.
They sure do.
Yeah. So, what's the advantage, or maybe disadvantage, of having in the infotainment center the navigation systems of the vehicle, where you have access to do conferences while you're maybe driving, or TikTok is playing while you're driving? Give me your thoughts on it from somebody who's the same generation as me.
I think the idea is that the center stack in a vehicle, and the user interface essentially becomes what you have at home or in your pocket. And at home, I mean like your smart TV. So, you get a smart TV, you have all your apps. I mean, we do this every weekend with my wife and I want to sit down and watch some television, which I don't watch a lot of, but, there's 50 choices of whatever streaming service to find a movie on, plus on demand and regular television. And I think that's kind of where we're heading, right? It's the same thing on your phone. You have apps all over the place that do all kinds of different things. Thought is, in an automobile, you have a captive audience, be it the driver or the passengers, and you want that same connectivity in your vehicle that you have in your pocket.
Kevin, let me interrupt for a second. What about the safety aspect of this?
Well, I guess the idea or the argument would be it's for the passengers, right? And it's not for the driver. You would hope people would be responsible enough.
Isn't that going to be distracting, Kevin, if I am driving the vehicle? It's even when I'm in the studio and I have somebody sitting next to me, I have to ask them, because of my A personality, be still for a moment, because that'll really distract me. And I've got to be able to focus on a lot of different things. And if I see the person next to me moving or typing or something, it's a distraction for me. So I can only imagine if I'm behind the driver's seat, and TikTok videos going over in the passenger seat ahead of me, or maybe in the back seat with the kids. I'm
Yeah.
like, hold on, I can't have all this confusion going on unless maybe we have headsets on.
Yeah. And you know me, right? I'm a car guy. I love to drive. I buy the older stuff for that reason specifically, that I don't have any of those distractions, right? And it's about
Maybe
me.
we need a two-seater. Maybe
Yeah, yeah,
that'll stop all
yeah.
that.
But yeah, no, it's certainly a concern. I don't know how it's regulated around. It's not available while but then you have passengers. So I don't know how it's going to be. It's certainly not going to help safety. That's for sure.
Yeah, so also we're hearing about General Motors with some of the apps that's in their vehicles, is that they're not going to be utilizing in some cases. I think it was Android, or maybe off just a little bit. They're going to try to bring some of that stuff in-house because of profitability, and not allow some third-party apps to be in their vehicles moving forward. Is that the reason for it? And we've
Well,
got less than a minute left, Kevin.
yeah. I mean, it's all about the money, right? So you have a captive audience. You have somebody who uses that device, if you want to call it an automobile device, probably every day, and probably for a nice chunk of time every single day. And so what automakers have to do is to figure out how to monetize that captive audience, right? Just like Facebook has to figure out, well, we got people that use this site. How do we monetize it? Well, we throw advertising in front of them, or Twitter, or any of these apps. And I think that's what automakers are finding, that subscription, be it to apps or to functionality in your vehicle, might be the way to have a nice, consistent revenue stream going forward. And what I mean is, all vehicles will be equipped with hardware, and then you pay for the software that turns on your heated seats, which you don't need in
Oh, we're not
Florida.
going to get into that conversation
Well,
right
but
now.
you don't need them in Florida, but in
I may need it every now and then in Florida when a hurricane comes through and it drops the temperature. But with that said, we're going to wrap up this conversation. So stay in touch with us at Twitter at Jeff Cars, or you can also follow us at Instagram at Auto Trends with Jeff Cars, or you can check us out at jeffcars.com. Hey, Kevin, appreciate you. Good always seeing you live. So
yeah,
take care.
always a great time. Thanks for
Oh,
having me.
of course. So take care and have a great day.